Ever stop to think that while so many people are chasing success, some figures suggest something like, a staggering 98% might not actually reach their big goals.
Yeah, that's pretty stark, isn't it? A huge number.
Totally. And today, we're diving deep into a book that, for generations, has promised to kind of shift those odds. Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich.
Right. And this book, it's not just, another self-help title.
Yeah.
He'll really put his reputation on the line with it.
How so?
He claimed it was this carefully distilled formula for success, something he figured out over years studying like hundreds of high achievers, big names like Andrew Carnegie.
Wow, Carnegie himself.
Yeah. And it got endorsements from, presidents, chief justices, business giants like F.W. Woolworth. Its influence is it's undeniable.
Absolutely. And our goal today, really, for you listening, if you're keen to learn and grow, is to kind of cut through everything and pull out the core actionable ideas from this book.
Exactly. We're not going chapter by chapter or anything.
No, not at all. It's more a focused look at the really potent concepts, the stuff that could genuinely impact how you think about your own ambitions, whether that's, climbing the career ladder or maybe achieving something deeply personal.
Consider it your shortcut to some potentially powerful insights.
So in this deep dive, we're basically on a mission, right? To understand the fundamental building blocks of Hill's philosophy.
Yeah, how can these core ideas potentially reshape your approach to setting goals and actually getting what you want? What's really going on underneath it all?
Okay, let's kick things off then. Let's unpack the very first step Hill really hammers home: definite desire.
And this isn't just like a casual wish or a fleeting thought.
No, he means a burning, unwavering focus on a specific outcome. He uses that really compelling story of Edwin C. Barnes.
Oh, yeah, Barnes. The guy with the intense, persistent desire to become a business associate of Thomas Edison.
Right. And what's really interesting about Barnes's story is the nature of his desire, isn't it?
Totally. He didn't just want a job for Edison. He wanted to work with him, like as a partner.
Even though he had zero connection and no money for the train fare, apparently.
Exactly. But his focus was like laser sharp. Hill really emphasizes his commitment. He talks about Barnes deciding to burn all bridges behind him.
Which sounds pretty extreme.
It does. Eliminating any fallback plan, just reinforcing that absolute commitment.
That level of single-mindedness. Hill suggests it's crucial, though. He contrasts Barnes with Marshall Field, too.
Right. After the Chicago fire, Field had that burning desire to rebuild his store.
While others just gave up.
Yeah, many other merchants just left the ruined city. But Field's determination, that absolute focus, fueled the creation of this massive business empire.
So it speaks to the power of vision, then, like not being afraid to be called a dreamer.
Absolutely. Hill points to people like Henry Ford with his vision for the horseless carriage, or Edison and the electric light.
Times that seemed impossible at the time.
Totally impossible. They were just dreams initially, but they became real through, sustained action, all fueled by that powerful desire.
And it's not just about money, is it? He shares that really personal story about his son.
Oh, yeah, that's quite moving. His son's hearing impairment.
His profound desire, mixed with faith and just relentless effort, apparently played a huge role in his son eventually being able to hear and speak.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? That this principle can apply to, well, pretty much any area of life.
Which kind of brings us naturally to one of the most talked about parts of the book, maybe the most elusive. That mysterious secret.
Yeah, the secret. He mentions it constantly, doesn't he?
He claims it's woven through the whole book, like on nearly every page. But he never actually names it.
It's like a challenge. He's daring you to figure it out.
So what's the thinking there?
Well, Hill's intention, it seems, is for this secret to kind of jump out at you. But only if your mind is ready for it, if you're actively searching and engaging with the principles.
So it resonates as you connect the dots.
That seems to be the idea. It really makes you wonder, what is this underlying thing he's hinting at? Maybe it's just the synergy, applying all these principles together.
Interesting. Okay, so building on desire, Hill then brings in faith and autosuggestion. These seem vital.
Absolutely vital. He calls faith the eternal elixir, the thing that gives life and power to our thoughts, the very starting point for, well, accumulating anything of value.
And when he says faith, he doesn't just mean religious faith, does he?
Not necessarily, no, though that can be part of it for some people. But he's really emphasizing a strong, unwavering belief in the possibility of achieving your definite desire.
Okay. And that links directly to autosuggestion.
Exactly. Autosuggestion is basically the psychological principle that we tend to believe whatever we consistently tell ourselves, whether it's true or not, initially.
So you're kind of programming your own mind.
That's a good way to put it. You're programming your subconscious. It gives a specific self-confidence formula.
Right, and that formula emphasizes persistent action towards that definite purpose again. It's not just wishful thinking.
Not at all. You have to translate the thoughts into consistent effort. And, importantly, Hill warns about the flip side.
The negative side of autosuggestion.
Precisely. He argues that people stuck in cycles of defeat or poverty often get there because they've unknowingly programmed their minds with negative self-talk.
He gives that stark example, doesn't he? Joseph Grant.
Yeah, the bank official. Hill calls it mental suicide because of Grant's constant negative talk about his situation. It just highlights how much our internal dialogue shapes our reality.
Okay, so we've got desire, belief, focused internal thoughts. But then Hill throws a curveball. He questions that old saying, knowledge is power.
Right. He suggests that's not the whole picture, and his distinction here is really crucial.
What's the distinction?
He argues that knowledge itself is just potential power, raw information, basically.
Okay.
It only becomes actual power when it's organized strategically, put into practical plans of action, and directed towards a specific end goal.
So knowing stuff isn't enough.
Not according to Hill. He actually criticizes education systems for often just focusing on acquiring knowledge without teaching how to effectively organize and apply it.
He points to people like Edison and Ford. Right, limited formal schooling, but masters at applying knowledge.
Exactly. They were brilliant at identifying the specialized knowledge they needed, acquiring it, and then, most importantly, using it effectively for their goals.
So for us, the listener, the takeaway is...
It's about first defining your goal clearly, then figuring out the specific knowledge you need to get there, and finding reliable sources for it.
And constantly learning.
Absolutely. Continuous learning and adapting are key, especially now with everything becoming so specialized. He even mentions things like night schools or correspondence courses.
Not just for the knowledge itself, but for the self-discipline they build too.
Precisely. That's a big part of it.
Right. So desire, faith, focused thinking, applied knowledge. Now we get to imagination, which Hill calls the workshop, right? Where plans are made.
Exactly. The mental workshop. And he makes a useful distinction here, too, between two types of imagination.
Okay.
Synthetic imagination and creative imagination. Synthetic is about combining existing ideas in new ways. Creative is more about tapping into genuinely new insights, like moments of inspiration.
And which one is more important?
Well, while creative imagination is often linked to genius, Hill says that for most of us, especially when starting out, it's the synthetic faculty that's more practical.
So rearranging what we already know to build a plan.
Pretty much. Using it to develop those concrete plans needed to turn desire into reality.
And he stresses actually writing these plans down.
Yes, absolutely. Writing down your definite desire and the step-by-step plan to achieve it. He sees that as the first concrete action. He tells that story about the enchanted kettle.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. The power wasn't in the kettle itself.
No, it was in the idea behind it and the plan to make it work.
It reminds me of that other story he tells about Dr. Frank Gonzalez.
The sermon, What I Would Do If I Had $1 Million.
That wasn't just talk, was it?
No, it was a burning desire combined with a definite plan, expressed with such passion that it actually attracted the money he needed.
So big results aren't just about hard work then?
Not solely, no. They're often a response to definite demands, based on clear principles and solid plans. Ideas, Hill says, can often be sold where physical products can't.
Okay, so all these individual parts are crucial. But then Hill introduces something that sounds like a force multiplier. The mastermind principle. What's that about?
The mastermind. Hill defines it as basically coordinating knowledge and effort, but in a spirit of harmony between two or more people all working towards a definite goal.
So teamwork on steroids.
Kind of. He argues that no single person, no matter how brilliant or educated, has enough experience, knowledge, and ability to guarantee massive success alone. You need cooperation.
Synergy, basically. The whole being greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly that. And he stresses that the best plans, the really effective ones for big goals, should be the joint creation of you and your mastermind group.
Interesting. And he uses examples like James J. Hill and Henry Ford again, how they faced setbacks.
Yeah. He points out they had temporary defeats, but their ability to bounce back often involved creating new plans, forming new alliances, essentially using the mastermind principle.
So defeat isn't failure. It's just a signal to change the plan.
That's exactly his point. Revise the plan, maybe consult your mastermind, but don't quit.
Okay. Now, building on this idea of working with others and having a plan, Hill gets into leadership and also marketing personal services.
Right. He argues that the same principles apply whether you're building a business or building a career. Intelligent planning, focused effort. It's all crucial for selling your skills or ideas, too.
And he makes a clear distinction between leaders and followers.
A very clear one.
Uh,
And he notes the big difference in, well, compensation and influence. He says you need to consciously decide which path you want.
and what makes a good leader, according to Hill?
He lists quite a few attributes, things like unwavering courage, self-control, a strong sense of justice, being decisive about plans and decisions.
Sounds demanding.
It is. Also, having the habit of doing more than you're paid for, having a pleasing personality, sympathy, understanding, mastering details, taking full responsibility, and cooperation.
It's a pretty comprehensive picture, earning respect through service.
Exactly. And he also mentions a shift happening towards more cooperation between leaders and teams, mutual benefit, partnership, not just top-down hierarchy.
And then he gives really practical advice on marketing yourself.
Very practical, like creating a detailed plan book or brief about your qualifications, writing personalized letters of application.
He even suggests offering to work on trial. That's bold.
It shows real confidence, doesn't it? And he emphasizes researching potential employers, understanding their needs, showing how you can help them.
It all ties into that idea of the golden rule in business he mentions, a spirit of service, fair exchange.
Precisely. He suggests industries that ignore that shift often run into trouble.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of the what to do, but Hill also focuses on what not to do, right? The 30 major causes of failure.
Yes, and that chapter is, well, it's sobering, but incredibly valuable as a checklist for really honest self-assessment.
30 causes, that's a lot.
It covers a wide range, everything from what he calls unfavorable hereditary background.
Which sounds a bit deterministic.
It does, but interestingly, he calls it the only cause you can't easily correct yourself unless you use a mastermind group to help compensate.
Ah, okay. And other causes.
Things like lacking a clear purpose in life, not enough ambition, lack of self-discipline, procrastination, poor health habits, lack of persistence. The list goes on. He really encourages you to look at yourself critically against this list.
And that self-reflection is key, isn't it? Seeing the potential weakness is the first step to fixing it.
Absolutely. He even includes specific self-analysis questions to help you do just that.
Then, after looking at external or behavioral causes of failure, he dives into the psychological barriers. The 6 ghosts of fear.
Right. These are the big internal enemies. He identifies them as the fear of poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death.
6 core fears. And he thinks they start with indecision.
Yes. Indecision is the seed. It grows into doubt, and doubt eventually crystallizes into fear. And these fears are damaging because they often work subconsciously.
Okay, let's quickly touch on each. Fear of poverty.
He links it to a primal instinct for economic survival. It leads to worry, doubt, indecision.
Fear of criticism.
That one can really stifle initiative and imagination. He mentions how negative comments from parents or others early on can instill this fear.
Fear of ill health.
He suggests this is often linked to mental state. Worry, fear itself, negative thoughts can actually contribute to poor health. The power of suggestion again.
Fear of loss of love.
Rooted in our social nature, the need for connection. He observes, perhaps controversially now, that women might be more susceptible due to societal factors of his time,
Fear of old age.
often tied to the fear of poverty later in life or negative cultural views about aging.
And finally, the fear of death.
Sometimes made worse, he thinks, by lacking a strong purpose or meaningful occupation in life. He sees a burning desire for achievement as the ultimate antidote.
And the key to beating all these fears.
Definite decisions. Making choices and sticking to them. Consciously directing your thoughts towards positive outcomes, not dwelling on the fears. He basically says worry is a waste of energy.
Okay. Now, this leads us into a topic that's, well, a bit unconventional maybe, the transmutation of sex energy.
Yes, this is one of the more discussed, sometimes misunderstood chapters. Hill presents sex energy not just as physical drive, but as a fundamental, powerful, creative force.
A creative force. How so?
He suggests that when this energy is consciously redirected or transmuted away from purely physical expression, it can fuel genius, creativity, and achievement in other areas.
So channeling that fundamental energy.
Exactly. He observes that many highly successful people seem to possess this strong underlying vitality. And they've learned, maybe consciously, maybe not, to channel it into their ambitions. He even links it to personal magnetism,
Charisma, influence.
that kind of thing. Now, he does briefly mention historical uses of alcohol or narcotics for creativity.
But he doesn't endorse that, right?
No, definitely not.
Hmm.
His core point is about harnessing the inherent power of this basic human energy and directing it constructively toward your goals.
Right. And all these principles we've talked about, desire, faith, plans, overcoming fear, channeling energy, they're all aimed at influencing what?
The subconscious mind. That's the ultimate target. Hill emphasizes that our subconscious works continuously, day and night.
And it's receptive to our dominant thoughts,
Um,
especially emotional ones.
Highly receptive, especially to thoughts that are charged with emotion. This is why faith and desire are so powerful. But it also means fear and doubt can negatively program it just as easily.
So those ghosts of fear are actively harmful to the subconscious.
Very much so. While intentionally cultivating positive emotions, he lists 7 major positive ones like faith, love, enthusiasm acts as a powerful force steering the subconscious towards your goals. He also lists 7 major negative emotions to avoid.
Okay. And finally, Hill talks about the sixth sense. What does he mean by that?
He essentially equates the 6th sense with a highly developed creative imagination. That faculty we talked about earlier, the one that taps into new insights.
The one most people don't use much.
Right. He suggests it's a defining trait of geniuses. They deliberately cultivate and use this faculty. It becomes more alert, more reliable, the more you trust and use it.
He gives examples like Edison again.
Yes, and Dr. Elmer R. Gates. People who seem to consciously access this source of innovation. Edison apparently would relax, clear his mind, almost waiting for ideas to come from.
Uh-huh.
Well, Hill calls it infinite intelligence, or even the ether.
Which sounds a bit mystical.
It does lean that way, but he leads into his final intriguing technique, the imaginary council.
Ah, yes. His mental meetings with historical figures.
Exactly. He describes holding these imaginary council meetings with people he admired: Emerson, Paine, Edison, Darwin, Lincoln, Napoleon, Ford, Carnegie.
Wow, quite the guest list.
Isn't it? He did this to try and absorb their qualities, their knowledge, their ways of thinking. He posed problems to them in his imagination.
And he felt he got real insights.
He describes developing vivid mental personalities for each one and feeling he genuinely gained wisdom and inspiration from these sessions. He presents it as a powerful technique for stimulating your own mind.
Almost like an internal mastermind group.
That's a great way to think about it. Even though it's imagination, it's about drawing on diverse intelligences, even if they're constructs, for growth and problem solving.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's try to crystallize a few main takeaways. What really stands out?
Well, first, that absolute necessity of definite desire. Not just wanting something, but having that burning, unwavering commitment to a very specific outcome.
Right. That seems foundational. And also the shift from just knowing stuff to applying it.
Yes, organizing knowledge into concrete, actionable plans. Execution is everything. Knowledge is only potential power until it's used.
And maybe confronting those fears, those 6 ghosts.
Definitely. Recognizing them, understanding them, and actively working to overcome them seems crucial. Just identifying which ones might be holding you back is a huge first step.
So that brings us to a question for you, listening. Thinking about all of this, what's one burning desire you feel really compelled to focus on? And maybe what's one concrete step you could plan, starting today?
Yeah, that's a great prompt. And perhaps also reflecting on those 6 fears: poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, death. Which one, if any, might be subtly influencing your thoughts or decisions right now without you even realizing it?
Taking that moment for some honest self-reflection, it could be really revealing, couldn't it?
Absolutely. We really hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought and maybe encourages you to explore these ideas further in your own way.